All right, we're doing another video today celebrating Thomas Sowell's legacy, kind of in line with the Hoover Institution releasing its new documentary series on Thomas Sowell's life called The Sowell Legacy, which started on July 30th and is coming out through the rest of the summer and the fall. It's going to be fantastic. We're also celebrating Thomas Sowell's wonderful sense of humor. Let's check out this video.
You know, I had as much opportunity to become an NBA star as Michael Jordan had. It just happens that there was some difference in skill. And so the same thing with education. There is no point trying to run people through institutions that they have very little interest in and that they may not be suited for. In fact, I would argue that one of the problems of American education is you have a lot of people in college who have no interest in what a college is supposed to be. Nor is there any reason why they should.
All right. Well, it doesn't show the interviewer's reaction, but he thought it was kind of amusing when Jordan said, when Thomas Sowell said that he just didn't have quite the skill as Michael Jordan. Here's another great video from Jordan Peterson. Says, reading Thomas Sowell's Black Rednecks and White Liberals and calling the central thesis quite radical and quite original.
Have you read much Thomas Sowell? In many ways, he filled your societal role for the last generation from a different academic perspective. I'm just reading his book right now. It's, what is it? Black Rednecks and White Liberals? I'm still making my mind up about it. It's quite a radical idea. I mean, in that book, Sowell claims that black urban culture is actually a derivative of Southern cracker culture, and that in turn is a derivative of rather dysfunctional British culture, what would you call British rural culture from a couple of hundred years ago. I'm still thinking it through. I find the book really interesting, and it wouldn't surprise me if it was true, but it's quite original. The thesis is quite...
It's a good book, and then, some of it is based on another book called Cracker Culture, which you can buy. It's a lot cheaper than when I bought it years ago for like $60. I saw it was like $14 or $15, and it kind of goes along with some of the same ideas, talking about the Deep South and those cultural differences. So I find it quite interesting. And here's another video that says Thomas Sowell was supposed to be the sixth child in his family. His parents died young, sadly. He was adopted as an infant and raised as an only child.
I want to talk a little bit about your history for a bit, and then we'll move on to your new book. Born North Carolina.
Yes.
Grew up in the Bronx.
In Harlem.
In Harlem. Tell me a little bit about some of your formative years.
Well, I thought about it as I was doing the research for the first chapter, where I get into the birth order thing. Now, had my parents lived a normal lifespan, I would have been the sixth child in the family. They died young, and so I was adopted in infancy in a family as an only child, raised as an only child in a home with 4 adults. And in terms of what I found about the research on birth order, clearly that was a huge advantage. And so their misfortune was my good fortune. And moreover, the family in which I was raised moved to New York, which at that time had a far superior educational system to that in North Carolina, and far superior to what it is today.
That's such a great reaction to really difficult times, and Thomas Sowell just rolls with it, adapts, and realizes that he did have the influence of quite a lot of adults giving him life advice, which is hugely beneficial. I guess it tends to be the later you are in birth order, the less attention you get from adults, and there's even slight IQ differences. It's not real significant, but might be a point difference or something between the older sibling and the younger siblings. And here it says Thomas Sowell was 8 years old in Harlem. He had never seen a public library. A kid named Eddie from a highly educated family took him there.
Were you always interested in education? I mean, even as a young person?
No. A little kid, there was nothing in my background that would have put me there. But fortunately, in Harlem, there was a kid named Eddie that members of the family had run into before I ever arrived from North Carolina. And he was came from a highly educated family. And they immediately saw the implications if they could get him to sort of mentor me. And now, had I had met Eddie on my own, chances are I would never have seen any significance. He would just have been one of the people I passed by. But of course, the adults understood what the future was like, and thinking about things that kids don't think about, despite the great worship of child talkers these days. And so he took me to a public library, and I had no idea what a public library was.
Wow.
I was 8 years old, and I saw all these books, and I had no idea why we were there when I didn't have any money to buy one book. And so, what am I going to do with all these, hundreds of books up on the shelf? And he very patiently walked me through the whole thing. And again, I was very reluctant to take out a library card because I didn't know what all this is about. But he talked me into it, and I borrowed a couple of books. And really, had I not encountered him, the entire rest of the story could not have been the way it was. I mean, at some point, I would have learned what a public library was, but by that point, it would be too late.
Yeah.
I mean, when you start getting in the habit of reading when you're 8 years old, that's a different ball game than if you have to wait till you're a teenager and it's too late now.
Dare I ask if you have any recollection what you might have taken out of the library at 8 years old?
One of the books was the Dr. Dolittle books. I don't know if you even know what those are. He could talk to the animals.
Yep.
Alice in Wonderland, and the rest of them. But I came in on May, and school wasn't open until September, so I had no one to play with, and I was just bored to tears. Mm-hmm. And so I started reading, really for the first time, and I got the habit of reading. And on that, that made the rest possible.
Yeah. Were there any other formative things that happened to you over those younger years?
Yes, the same fellow was very knowledgeable about the school system. So when I finished elementary school, and they assigned me to a junior high school in a very bad neighborhood, he told me that you can get transferred. And I, in fact, got transferred to a much better school. Had I gone to that other school, again, the story would have been entirely different. One of the themes of the early part of the book here is that there are a whole number of things that have to come together, and if you don't have all of those prerequisites, then whatever good qualities you have don't matter. And I mentioned illiteracy, that in the middle of the 20th century, something like 40% of the adults in the world were still illiterate, and so it doesn't matter what their native talent or any of that came along. You can't read. There are a whole lot of occupations you just simply can't get into.
All right, another great video from the great Thomas Sowell. Okay, let's see what this next one is. Thomas Sowell on life, liberty, and leaven. The real danger is not the silly ideas being promoted. So here's a little clip on also celebrating Thomas Sowell's legacy from Mark Levin.
This is our inaugural show for Saturday, and we have one of my great heroes, the great Thomas Sowell. Most of you know who Thomas Sowell is. He wrote columns for decades. He's written fantastic books. He's been a leader in the liberty movement for at least half a century, as far as I'm concerned. And he's been warning the American people of tyranny, what tyranny looks like, creeping tyranny, aggressive tyranny. From my perspective, we're sitting dab in the middle of it. And he's got this fantastic new book out, Social Justice Fallacies by Thomas Sowell. You can get it at Amazon.com or any major bookstore. It is a fantastic book, and I want to welcome you, Dr. Sowell, and let me just say this to you. I've been following you since I was a little kid, not to date both of us, and you had an enormous impact on my life. In fact, you've had an enormous impact on the way I do this program. I remember you on with Bill Buckley and Firing Line, and you were a killer debater. Absolutely unbelievable. All that said, let me start it this way. Social justice fallacies. You started out as a Marxist, as many young people do in colleges and universities, and it didn't take long for you to realize, wait a minute, this isn't all that it's cooked up to be. Was this social justice stuff and this inequality stuff, these terms, these ambiguities, did that have an impact on you first being a Marxist and then realizing, wait a minute, this is all BS?
Yes, it did. And I think there's a very simple explanation that as of the time I became a Marxist, I didn't know as much as I knew after several years of study and observing things going on. And as facts carried a lot of weight with me, And when the facts kept going the wrong way, I realized that this was not going to do what it claimed it was going to do. One of the big problems about the social justice field is that what they say sounds so good. It's only after you study history that you find out just how bad, how horribly it actually turned out.
Well, these phrases are very nebulous. Social justice. What does that mean? Basically, if you agree with the Marxists and the leftists, then you support social justice. But on the other hand, if you support individuality and capitalism and private property rights, obviously you're anti-social justice. What does all this mean?
Well, that's how they look at it. They seem to assume a world in which if things don't turn out the same for everybody, that means that somebody has done somebody wrong. And that's an incredible assumption that human beings have such enormous control over their own fates individually or collectively. I mean, when I think back over my life, and I'm sure other people can do the same in their lives, there are times that a particular person appeared on the scene and changed the whole trajectory of my life. And it's happened more than once, and I'm sure it's happened in the lives of many other people. There's nobody out there who has all the incredible amount of knowledge required to take over making other people's decisions for them.
Do you find that these radicals, these autocrats basically, this term social justice, do they really mean centralized government, redistribution of wealth, a permanent government that undermines representative government? Isn't this really the nomenclature for that?
It is, and if you realize what enormously high opinions many of the intellectual elites have of themselves, you can see that what it boils down to is very intellectual people like themselves just simply preempting the decisions of other people in every aspect of their lives. One of the things that is astonishing to me now is that we're having this big debate about sex education in the schools. And to me, the question is, what qualifies the people who are pushing this stuff to take over the roles of parents? What's also very troubling is that this all came out during the COVID pandemic, when students were studying at home and the parents got to see what was being taught in the schools. Now, it so happens that 30 years ago, I wrote a book called Inside American Education, in which all of this was laid out just exactly as it's happening now. The fraudulence of it, the appearance that this is responding to what the students want. I can't imagine how many young people in the elementary schools especially are saying that they are a boy but they want to be a girl, or they're a girl and want to be a boy. I can't think of anybody in my whole lifetime who was saying things like that. And if you follow the sort of institutional way these things are done, there are groups outside the school system and inside the school system who want to do this, and who know that the parents don't want them to do it, and they do it anyway, and they pretend that they're responding to what the students want. They're not. Once I was at a meeting of educators, and while I was there was a man who was going around the country selling a particular brainwashing program, and he showed me his schedule, and he was scheduled, my gosh, for every 2 or 3 days for months to be pushing this stuff in all the schools. And he mistook me as if he thought I was a school official, and he was regaling me with all of this. It's clear this is not a spontaneous thing. This is organized, and the tactics used are the tactics that were developed for brainwashing in communist countries.
The book is Social Justice Fallacies by Dr. Thomas Sowell. And in fact, Dr. Sowell, critical race theory, the 1619 Project, these are really anti-knowledge, aren't they? They're really propaganda devices for the hard left that are being, pushed in our classrooms, pushed in our society, and so forth. These attacks on the American system? Do they promote equality? Do they promote unity? Do they promote a melting pot society, or are they intended to destroy this culture?
Clearly, it's the latter. And also, when you said it's not just propaganda, it is propaganda that overtly prevents other views from being heard. If they were just propagandizing, but the students were allowed to learn other things as well, different ways of looking at life, that's one thing. But anyone who, for example, there are people who've taught academic courses on racial and ethnic issues at Harvard and other places who just simply stopped teaching their courses because if they were saying anything that was different from what the propagandists were saying, you would have violence on the campus and so on, and the university administrators would not protect their classes. So they just stopped doing it. One of the great scholars in this area, the late Stephen Thernstrom, simply stopped teaching his course because you had ignorance silencing knowledge.
Ignorance silencing knowledge. And you write an entire section on knowledge. You break it down into different subsections. Let me ask you this. I don't even know if you watch news these days, but you're talking about what goes on in the classroom. Are we really a nation that's about knowledge now? Or are we a nation that's about substituting the language of the hard left for real words, substituting the thought process of people who really seek to find, quote unquote, the truth with ideology? What have we become on the whole? I mean, when I watch the news, all I hear is propaganda, surface level BS.
Well, yes, and that's the norm, unfortunately, in academic institutions, even the most prestigious. The entire Ivy League is in that same mode. That people who, it scares me because you have people like, say, Heather McDonald or Charles Murray will come on a campus, and they do so at physical risk to themselves, and again the authorities do nothing. I've been, of course, I don't normally go to those things anyway, but I've been in some of them where they had the police all around, the doors all locked, and people outside banging on the windows and doors just to disrupt the talk that's going on inside. I remember back in 1969, this has been going on a long time, and it's so sad that it's taken us so long to become aware of it. 1969, students at Harvard went into the administration building, seized it, went into the personnel records, and were passing out all the personal information for the faculty and other things to the media and so on. The president of Harvard called in the police. The Harvard faculty gave a vote of no confidence to the president, and he resigned. And I think after that, other presidents decided that the way is to get along is have preemptive surrender. And that's been really developed into an art.
You've been studying our country for a very long time. The history, economics, philosophy, you covered the whole horizon. 40 years ago, 50 years ago, today, was the country in a better position today than it was half a century ago, or is it in a worse position today?
Oh, much worse, much worse. The silencing of the other side has now become much more prominent. And the real danger is not in the silly ideas that are being promoted. It's in the fact that nobody else is allowed to reply to them without some danger to themselves.
Do you see in this country a growing police state? I don't necessarily mean a police state like you'll see in these aggressive fascist or Marxist regimes, but sort of slowly but surely, like you're talking about controlling the language, which controls thought and activity, this massive censorship that judges have now ruled on by this administration. You can see the politicization of the Department of Justice and so forth. But let me put it to you this way, a more fine point. Are we a free country today? I remember Mises once saying that Americans talk like Marxists. Are we a free country today, or are we a country on the precipice of losing our freedom?
I think the latter. It's hard for me to see just how we're going to come out of this, especially when people who are so willing to increase the powers of government don't seem to understand that it doesn't matter for what purpose you gave them that power, which may have been good purposes. Once they have that power, they can use it for whatever they want. The Federal Reserve System was set up, for example, to prevent runaway inflation or runaway deflation or bank failures. And the intellectuals were 100% behind that. But the cold fact is that there's been more deflation, as in during the Great Depression, and more inflation for decades on end, and more bank failures than ever occurred prior to the setting up of the Federal Reserve System. But the Federal Reserve System, for example, can force people to do things they don't want to do just because they have the power to hold up what their decisions are. And so the power created for one purpose is then used for some different purpose. When FDR took the United States off the gold standard, he used the law passed during the First World War to prevent trading with enemy nations. But once the power was there, you could use it for anything you wanted to.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to...
All right, great stuff from Thomas Sowell. Here's another video. It says, Dave Rubin asks Thomas Sowell, is education the number one thing a human being can do? Sowell, I wouldn't carry it that far. Some of the most disastrous notions in the world have come from highly educated people with high IQs. And he just talked about that, didn't he? All the issues with these people trying to control other people's speech on college campuses. I took a class that kind of covered culture and business and religion in East Asia for my master's degree years ago. And the teacher there, who was from America, said that he would never be able to teach that class in the United States. And he was another guy who was a communist turned conservative, similar to Thomas Sowell. And some of those people are the most interesting to listen to. Like, really, that was one of my favorite classes ever. And I think that, that mentality is a big part of the reason why so many people love Thomas Sowell.
It's pretty clear from all the reading of yours that I've done, you put education basically is number one, right? I mean, is that the number one thing that you can do as a human being? Get educated?
I guess, although I wouldn't carry it too far, because some of the most disastrous notions in the world have come from highly educated people with, I'm sure, high IQs.
So perhaps critical thinking with a little education.
I will settle for almost any kind of thinking. It's so rare these days.
Oh, man. He's got some points there. He's got some points. It is rare. People on college campuses just promise ridiculous utopian nonsense. Here's another great video of Condoleezza Rice, Clarence Thomas, and so on, celebrating Thomas Sowell's legacy. So another common theme that we're going to have for the next few months is celebrating Thomas Sowell's legacy. So keep tuning back into D School so you can get more. Okay, we're not over yet, though. We're going to watch a little bit of this. Not the whole thing, but definitely check out the Glenn Show on YouTube to watch this whole video.
Something told me that I was glimpsing the future. This very powerful woman, I mean, she is Emeritus Secretary of State of the United States of America, this esteemed and extremely accomplished jurist. Yeah, that's Clarence Thomas who I'm talking about. And what do they have to say when they're huddled in the green room at a conference honoring Thomas Sowell? How can we get people to take more seriously the public imperative of preparing young Black kids in poverty to compete on a level playing field in this society? That's the future. Anyway, okay, so we're live at the Glenn Show. We're going to have a conversation today. We're going to be talking about all kinds of stuff. The big deal for me over the last 6 months has been the lead up to and the culmination of and consummation of the conference honoring the great African-American economist and public intellectual Thomas Sowell of the Hoover Institution at Stanford University, 95 years old, and the author of 40 books and an iconic figure, both as a scholar of social inequality, race, and ethnicity, and also as a commentator on public affairs from a libertarian conservative perspective. Tom Sowell has been around for a half century in American public life and is someone who has inspired me in his determined, heroic advocacy of point of view about public affairs and about race that is anathema to the conventional liberal mind. And I was very blessed to have been asked by Condoleezza Rice, the director of the Hoover Institution, former Secretary of State, African-American woman of some considerable stature, to co-organize the conference honoring Thomas Sowell. I worked with Stephen Davis, an economist who is director of research at the Hoover Institution, and the two of us put together a 2-day program that invited scholars, of course, to make remarks and present their research relevant to the corpus of work that Tom Sowell accumulated over the course of a half century, as well as other figures who were influenced by or who made use of the work of Thomas Sowell in their own writing and commentary, illustrating the reach that Tom has had in terms of commentary on public affairs. It went off with great success at Stanford. And I'm happy now to be able to bask in the afterglow of what was a very successful event. I must say, leading up to it, I was anxious. I was quaking in my boots, concerned about whether or not the remarks that I would have to make, and I gave 2 lectures. One, a kind of mini keynote setting the stage. I was the second person to speak in the morning program of the first day after Justice Clarence Thomas was being interviewed for an hour by Peter Robinson, who is a Hoover affiliate, who hosts a podcast and program called Uncommon Knowledge, which is an interview show that Peter Robinson does very, very well with esteemed guests and so forth and so on. Anyway, Peter Robinson in conversation with Justice Thomas. And then the stage was mine to frame the proceedings to come over the next 2 days in the language and the register of an economist, Thomas Sowell's Economics. And I gave a lecture in that spirit. And on day 2, in a panel that I shared with great satisfaction with my former student and colleague, co-author and good friend, Roland Fryer, a panel that was devoted to the significance of Thomas Sowell's research on culture and inequality. I gave a lecture there that attempted to comprehensively review the contributions that Sowell has made in the economics of cultural influences on social outcomes. And Roland gave a very nice talk on his research on hip-hop and the extent to which it's changed over the decades and how that might have or might not have impacted on behavioral outcomes in African-American communities. But in any case, I gave 2 talks. So it was a big deal. It was a big deal for me. It was a big deal for me because I deeply respect the legacy of Thomas Sowell and was honored really almost beyond measure to have been asked to shepherd in the assemblage of dignitaries. I should mention that in addition to Justice Clarence Thomas, Kemi Badenoch, the woman, Black woman, African-descended woman who is head of the Tories, the Conservative Party in the United Kingdom, flew in from London in order to sit on a 90-minute panel discussing the influence that Tom Sowell's writing has had from her perspective on the discussion of racial issues in the United Kingdom. And there were other, very prominent people, some of whom are affiliated with Hoover, some of whom not, who contributed to the proceedings. And yes, I was honored to have been asked to play that kind of organizing role. Important to me for a number of reasons, both, as an economist, I felt that I was being handed the responsibility as a custodian, in a way, of Sowell's intellectual legacy of framing and giving voice to the appreciation that Hoover Institution wanted to express for the contributions that Thomas Sowell has made over the years. Those contributions are considerable. And I was also, in a way, chastened a bit by the responsibility of giving voice to what Sowell has actually done in his life. I mean, conservative, Black conservative. How much of a Black conservative is Glenn Lowry? Well, the person could raise a question about that, and people have raised questions about it. And what role does race play in the self-understanding of an intellectual who happens to descend from slaves? Sowell, in the excellent biography by Jason Riley, Maverick, and in his own voice, Sowell's own voice, in his autobiography, A Personal Odyssey. Sowell he's from North Carolina, born in North Carolina in Jim Crow segregation in 1930, brought up in Harlem in poverty, educated at Columbia, Harvard, and the University of Chicago. Started as a Marxist, a devoted follower of Karl Marx, Das Kapital, but evolving into a free market economist and a follower of Friedrich von Hayek.
Yeah.
As I say, author of 40 books. That's a lot. That's a book every 15 months for a half century. And believe me, that's an act that's going to be very, very hard to follow. A prodigious footprint, column at Forbes magazine, which he was writing on, a bi-weekly basis, and doing that while he was doing everything else that he was doing. Acerbic, biting commentary, often from the right of center.
Absolutely. We hear that a lot about him, don't we? That he's acerbic. Quite direct and precise in his speech, though, and I think that's fantastic. So this has been a pretty good video so far, in my opinion, but you can make your own decisions. Definitely check out The Glenn Show. He's on Substack and YouTube and has got some great stuff. So, and so he's written some books that are quite good as well. So you might want to check that out. And keep coming back to D-Schooled, because we're going to be celebrating Thomas Sowell's legacy for the rest of the year. And probably after that as well. All right, have a fantastic day. Like, share, comment. Comments, I think, are big with the algorithm. I don't really know, though. Whatever you want to do helps, I think. Have a fantastic day.